Today I'm going to discuss how to quickly set up, in this case, KineticPup32, which is a 32-bit Puppy Linux saved a folder information from another machine. But let me quickly give you overview of this machine itself. So when we look at the gparted, so this has a 500 gig the internal hard drive SSD, which I formatted because it's a UEFI machine. It has to have the first EFI and FAT32, which is only 300 megabyte, and this is where the bootloader and grub goes in. And second partition is a Puppy Linux distributions, and here we can take a quick look at the second partition, which I put it here. So the first folder contains FOSSA-PUP ISO files. Like all the Puppy Linux distros, the only files that are needed is .sfs files and two other files from the ISO, which is initrd and VM lens. So these are only what you need to configure grub a bootloader. So this is under one folder here in this partition, and the other folder is a KineticPup32, which is the program that's loaded here. And then from the ISO file, you need the .sfs files. That's how you set that up. Now after you go ahead and set up this, what you need is to set up a bootloader. So to do that, what you have to do is, well, let me just close this all up, is to use the setup and frugal pup. Because this is a UEFI machine, you cannot use grub for DOS. You have to go to the frugal pup and then go through the boot button and set it up. So it will find both FOSSA-PUP and KineticPup32 in a bootloader fashion. And then once you get that going and reboot, then you end up this screen here. Okay, so which is a quick setup for KineticPup32. But let me just go through this again. So this is a second partition, and third partition on the internal hard drive, I have a save folder. So we'll be using save folder in here. So right now I have already a save folder using the same KineticPup32 from another machine that I simply copied copied it into the this partition and save a folder. But because this is a non-UEFI machine, I cannot simply just load this up and expect it to run without difficulty. So this, and we'll also be taking a look at and borrow some elements of files and so on from FOSSA-PUP64, which is actually on a is the other operating system on this machine. So just given that background, and then the next partition is simply my data partition, which is photos and music and documentation, docs and so on. So, and this is the swap fold swap partition, and I have elected to give 9 gig of swap partition, and this is just empty, unallocated, and SSD needs about 10% of unallocated SSD space for it to function with particularly with a trim function. So I've go ahead and elected to that. That's how I got it set up. So one key thing is that you want if you want to follow this particular setup, the partition here on a UEFI machine should have label capital SAV. This becomes important when we fine-tune the grub CFG file, grub file, bootloader file. So and then within it, so within that, I also have elected to make a folder, a small folder, save folder, and then actually save all the save folders within that folder. Okay, I hope that all makes sense. So this is how I got it set up, and let me just go ahead and close everything now, and then so here we're at the first bootable folder. So a first setup, a quick setup. So we'll go ahead and live in England. English USA is fine, and then I live in Western USA, and US Pacific is correct zone for me. And then time from internet, and we'll go ahead and host name, we'll make it just S for my Samsung computer. So this one you can just name it pretty much anything you want, but within the home network system, I will know that this machine is just S. So we'll go ahead and give it an OK, and then host name has been set, and then I wanted to on every boot I wanted to synchronize with a systemic time. So we'll pick up the sync to time server. Right now it is connected on my machine with the Ethernet, so we'll go ahead and sync. So we wanted to, each startup we wanted to so I can hear that starting sound of trumpets in the background, and then we'll go ahead and do the internet, and although it's connected, we can just go ahead and set it up again. Simple network setup. And then this is using the Ethernet now, and then we'll just take a look at this icon here, and then now it's reconnected. Okay, so we'll go ahead and save that, set it as default, and that's fine. Okay, now that's what I usually do with just quick initial setup. So let me just we'll look at the grub CFG file at this point. So we can take a look at the grub file, grub CFG. So you notice that I also saved another grub CFG from before, and we can load up both of them. So we'll go ahead and click on those, and then open with, and we're going to open it up with Genie, which is our text editor. And then we'll make it this little bigger, and then document, and then we'll line wrap so we don't use any information. And then to make it look easier to see, we'll make it to 14, and so it'll be bigger. Okay. So if we look at the present running CFG, it's what I've done actually is to go ahead and added these parameters, which was not present in the CFG grub.cfg. So what this states is that puppy, I'm telling the puppy, in this case FossaPup64, to where to find a FossaPup64 SFS files. So I have it under pups, which is a label I've given to this here. So this is where the pup SFS files are. So let me just go ahead and, so this is where SFS files are for FossaPup. So similarly, I've also directed on the KineticPup side a KP32. So it boots faster this way because it doesn't have to look at the rest of the hard drive to know where the SFS files are. More importantly, I've also given a path to where the save folders should reside. So in this case, SAV is, as I alluded to before, is here. So, and this is labeled a capital SAV in the gparted. So within it, there's save folder. So I'm directing the both FossaPup and then KineticPup32 where to save the save folders. So this is where it's going to save. So when we boot now, what it's going to do is it's going to save the initial folder here. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and reboot, and we'll lose the information on the simple screen recorder. Only thing I've done here before a quick setup is to install simple screen recorder and adjust the sound settings so it uses my microphone and headphone setup to record the simple screen recorder. Okay, so we'll go ahead and reboot, and we'll stop this first.